on. So now we want to show a view of where the customers of each office are located. So for this question, we need to get the employee office and the sales that that office made and where the customers were from. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so I just opened up a new query. And for this question, I'm just going to start as the usual by bringing in the orders data, and we're going to also show the order details. So we just join name and the order number. We just remember the join condition by now because we've done it quite often. So now we want to get the customer data, but we also want the employees and offices. So let's just look at our employees table. So we'll back into here and just look at the column. So we have employee number, but we also have office code. In our offices table, we have office code. Okay, so maybe easiest to look at the ER diagram again, because we're going to bring in many of these tables. We have customers, orders, order details, and I want to show the products as well. I want to see if any products are sold in any countries. And then we also have the employees and offices table. So the offices table doesn't directly connect to the customers table. We have to go through the sales rep employee number, then the employee table, then the offices. Okay, so let's also just join the customers table and then the products table. So inner join customers. And if you remember, the customer number is in our first table, equals t3.customer number. And then we'll inner join the products table. T4 on. So our product code is in order details table. So T4 dot product code equals, I will do T2 equals T4 dot product code. Now we have many columns. We have each product's name and description and everything, but we're not going to display all this in the end. We'll just make our columns. I just like to do the joins first. So next, so from the customers table, we have the sales rep employee number. So now we can inner join the employees table. On, so it'll be T3 dot sales rep employee number equals T5 dot employee number. So now if we go to the very right hand side, it will be the employees table. And we can have the office code. So now we can join the offices table. And that'll be our final table. Office code equals T6 dot office code. Okay. So yeah, we have the country, the office country. That's what we want. We'll maybe bring in the city as well. So let's just pick what column you want to show from the left hand side. We'll bring in the order number. The indus reference which table is coming from. We'll bring in the sales, we'll get the sales value. So let's show quantity order. So we're going to need the product code. And a lot of these columns are going to be ambiguous. So we've got product code from T2. Quantity ordered is also T2. And then price. And we will also bring the customer, company, and city. So that will be T3. So if we write T3.city, we want to name this just to reference it as the customer's city. So we'll name it customer city. And we'll do T3.country as well. And we'll name it customer country. And we'll bring in the product line. So that comes from the product table. And then let's bring in, we don't actually need the sales reps. We just want the offices, city, and country. So that will be T6 dot city. And then we want to name that as office, city, and then T6 dot country as office, country. You can see if we didn't rename these, we would have three columns in city, and we wouldn't know which one is customer and which one is the office. So let's just run this. Okay, so the only other column I would like to add is just a sales value. So that's just quantity ordered multiplied by price each. And that will be sales value. Okay, now if we run this, we can, again, we're just going to create a CTE and then sum the sales value. And then we're going to show it at a product line breakdown. So then we can see each office's country, customer's country, and the sales value of each product in that country. So let's create our CTE first. And then we're not going to bring back all the columns. So we'll bring back each order number. And the sales value. And then the customer city. Customer country. Product line. Yeah, just the rest of the columns. But what we're actually going to have to do is sum the sales value, otherwise we'll bring in each record. But we're going to aggregate this in product line level, so we'll actually bring this in last. So I'm just going to delete it. We want to sum. Our main CTE.
Necesito que me cocine. No, es que como un poquito, o no sé, mira que estoy
We want to aggregate column.
siempre he estado flaca y no me pareció necesario
Remember last
entallarme.
column.
Y ahorita necesito entallarme, necesito una máquina, aquí no hay máquinas, aquí no hay
Product line.
Entonces el vestido se me ve
There's no
súper
underscore now.
voladísimo. O sea, ni me entienden.
The same description.
Entonces se me ve
No
súper
underscore.
colgado.
Okay.
Entonces,
Okay, so now I'm just going to copy all this data and bring it into Excel. So again, add a new sheet. Okay, and then we'll have the pivot tables in this. So we want to see an overview of the office country and the customer countries, and then we'll count the distinct order number. So we are going to have sometimes the same order number twice. That's why we need to count distinct, because they'll have two different product lines. But let's just try the pivot table with distinct order number. side, we can bring in the customer country. Okay, because the customer country has many more in the office, I would actually prefer doing the other way around. It's just easier to read. Yep. So we would just need to highlight that the office is on the top, and then what we could do, we could even sum the sales value. And then you can see which offices, which countries they sell to more often. So it would make sense. Japan sells most to its own country, Hong Kong, Philippines, Singapore, so they're all closer together. France sells to Europe, for example. Okay, so I've just noticed our issue with Norway again, so we'll need to just change that back. So if we just click on our column data and we'll filter it, we'll need to show Norway, but we need to pick both of them. Okay, so the first one doesn't have any showing blank, so I'm just going to drag it down so that they all are the same. Then we can remove the filter and refresh our pivot table just by right clicking. So that'll only bring in one Norway and sum the total sales. Okay, and then we'll just change the goodwill values to $. And what I would like to do is highlight where Australia meets Australia, France meets France, just for the 5 offices. And then we can make the background color green, for example, just to make them stand out, because these are going to be higher. Although France sells a lot to Spain as well by the looks of it. And another way we might want to view this is we could bring the office code country into filters, and then we could select a single filter to show, where France sold to, for example. And even if we show them all, we could insert a pivot chart. We can either make it a column or a bar. I'll do a bar chart. And let's just order it. I click sort largest to small. I will do smallest to largest. So the USA is on top, and then we actually have our filter here in the chart as well. So we can select Australia, for example. That's just going to show the 3 on the chart. And then we can select multiple values to France and UK together. Okay, so I think that's the best way to visualize it actually. Okay, so I'm just going to rename this sheet office sales. And let's insert another pivot table just below where we were. And we'll show which product line has the highest sales in each office. So we'll insert another pivot table just below our previous one. And on the left hand side we'll have the, actually, yeah, because we want to visualize this, we'll put the office country on the left hand side because this will be our x-axis in our chart. And then we'll have our product line on the right hand side. And then we will sum our sales values. And then we can insert a pivot table, a pivot chart from this. Just at the top, insert pivot chart. And a stacked column chart shows each country's office and what products have the highest sales value. So France, for example, she sells mostly, all of them sell mostly classic cars, but Australia sells more vintage cars than the other countries. This is as a percentage of total sales. So I think that would also be useful. Data to know, and we can, in our design pane, you can just change the way it's viewed as well. You have many options here. And yeah, you can change the colors. Have a similar color theme. It may be harder to read, but it might look better. So I'll just go light blue to dark blue for now. We could also even add our data labels. We just need to change the font to be dark in our lighter blues and light font in our darker blues. I'll not display data label, I'll just display the trend. Okay, so I'm just going to save this workbook, and in the next video we'll work on our next exercise. So I'll see you there. order date and a required date and a ship date. And what we'll need to do, we'll need to add 3 days onto the ship date. So we can do that now. So we'll just bring in everything, add a comma. Now to add 3 days, we want to use the date add, so date underscore add, and we will add to the ship date. Okay, one bracket ship date, and if you remember it's interval, and it will be 3 day. So not days, but day. And we'll name that latest arrival. Okay, so our ship date is 10th of the 1st, but our latest arrival will be 13th of the 1st. So we can see that this is actually the same as the required date. So what we would want to do then is to look at when the latest arrival is greater than the required date. Then we'll create a flag to display 1, otherwise it will display 0. So to do that, we'll just need to add a case statement. And we can't just name latest arrival in our case statement, we'll need to actually look at the calculation again, unless we had created a CTE, but we'll not create a CTE now. We'll just write out our calculation again by copying and pasting it. So we want to know when this latest arrival calculation is greater than the required date. Then 1, else 0, ends. And we'll name that late flag. Okay, and then, yeah, we do have one here, we can see, for example. Yeah, we have a few. So we can actually order this by just checking on the late flag twice, and then we'll see all the orders that have been shipped late. And if we only wanted to display one, we can, again, we can't just add where late flag equals 1 because this calculation hasn't happened. So we can write out our case statement without naming the column. So we'll just copy our whole case statement and just add it to a where clause. So where case when date add greater than required date and equals 1. So we'll just put this calculation in brackets, this case statement. So only show it where that equals to 1, and then it's not going to display orders which weren't affected.
Hoy te doy 5
Now we just
consejos
provide
para
us
ir
with
a
this
Torre
order.
del Paine. 1. Comprar las entradas al parque y
Okay, so that's it for this
reservar
exercise.
los
It was a bit more
campings con
straightforward
meses
than
de
that. But in the
anticipación,
next video, we'll
sobre
be more
todo si
complicated.
estás pensando
So I'll see you in
ir
the next
en
video.
temporada alta. 2. Elegir el circuito que mejor se adapte a tu condición física. Puedes hacer el mirador Las Torres en
Hi
el
everyone.
mismo día
So now we're going to
o
work on this
optar por el
question because
circuito
you
de
know
la
much more advanced than
W que va
so
de 3 a
please
5
send me a
días
breakdown
o el
of each
circuito
customer
de
and a
la O
seal
que va
for
de
a
8 a
money
10 días. 3.
and
No
customer
llevar
will
mucho
be
peso en la
So let's
mochila
have a look.
ya que vas a
Okay,
estar
so let's look at the
caminando
RDR diagram.
durante muchas
Just to think about how we
horas.
would
Te
make your
recomiendo
business great.
llevar lo
So we're going to want to
esencial.
create a column which calculates all the sales for each customer by date. And we'll need a running total of those sales column as well in this output. And we'll calculate that using the order and order details table and also the customer table to get the breakdown by customer. But you can see our customer table also has a credit limit field here. And we'll use this to calculate their credit limit, which won't change in each row. But we will be able to calculate because we'll have a running total of the amount owed, we'll also have to take off payments from this field every time there's a payment. And we'll use the payment date for this. Okay, so let's just first bring in all columns from the orders table. Let's double click on the last column here. Orders. I'll just name this T1. And we'll join in the order details table. On the order number. And as we've done so many times so far, we'll calculate the values by multiplying the quantity ordered by the price. So let's just add that field in at the end. So as you know, we're breaking it by product, this is why we just multiply quantity ordered by pricing. I see. And we'll just name that sales value. Okay. So now our last column will be the sales value at a product level, order number, and customer number. So now we can put in the customer table on the customer number as well. So let's do that. We'll do an inner join of customers. T3. And our customer number is in the order table, if you remember. So it's our P4 key in our order table. So that'll be T1.customer number equals T3.customer number. And we'll keep it as all, and then we'll just have a look at everything now. But we'll just pick which fields we want to return. So we'll have our sales value at the end, but now you have our credit limit and our customer key. Okay, so now rather than bringing all our columns back, we're just going to bring our calculation down a little, and we'll pick our columns that we want to display. So let's show the order date. We're going to need that. And we'll bring in the customer number and customer name. And I want to bring in the product code just so that we know why it's broken down. Our output is broken down and why we have multiple order numbers. So product code. And then the credit limit as well. And we'll keep our calculation. Okay, I've probably got an ambiguous, yeah, I'll have an ambiguous column. So, customer number, just bring it from T1. Okay, and then now it's just much easier to see. So we'll see the customer name, before product, credit limit. So now we can sum the sales value. But we can't do it until after we create it. We'll create from this. So we'll create a CTE with this. So we'll do that. We'll name it CTE sales as. And then now we can just, again, select star from CTE sales. And we'll just get the same output. So the next step in this query will be to sum the sales value for each order date and customer. So now we have each customer, their order date, and then the sales value of that order. We don't want to bring in product code then, because this will break it down even further. We only want one order date per customer, and we want to see the sum of the sales value on that date. We'll also bring back the credit limit, so let's just do that. So we'll bring back order date. We could also bring the order number here if you like. We'll need to bring it back into our sales CTE, so yeah, let's just bring back T1.order number. And then we can display that as well. Order number, customer number, we'll bring back the customer name, and the credit limit. And then now we can sum the sales value. And again, we'll just name that sales value. And we just need to group it then by all our columns that are non-active. So I'm just going to copy them down. now we have an order number, one order number, and the sales value per customer on each sale. So we can use this to calculate our running total. So we actually order this output by the customer number. So let's look at customer 103, for example. You can see they have 3 orders on 3 different dates, and we want to sum the sales value, but we want it to show this the running total in a new column. So again, we're going to need to create a CTE, or we could use this as a subquery, this query which we have just wrote, but I'm going to write a CTE again. So to do that, we just need to write a comma after our first CTE, and then we can start writing a second one, and I'll just name it running total sales CTE as, so you don't need to write with, remember, open brackets, close brackets. I always just like to bring back all columns again. So now we'll add another column to this, which has the running total. So again, I'll just order it by customer number. I'll add a comma here. Now if you remember, our row number, over, we can partition it by customer number, order it by the order number. Over, and we'll partition by customer number, and order by our order date. We can actually name this as purchase number. Okay, so we can see now we have numbered each purchase, but we don't actually need this column. I'm just showing it for reference. We're going to modify this row number, and I want to show you that you can actually sum a column using the similar syntax. So we will sum the sales value over partition by, and then this will be running total sales. And now it's going to sum each sales value, but because we're partitioning by customer number, it will start again when a new customer number starts. So it's going to stop at the last purchase here, and then we'll take a sum. So let's just run this, and now you can see when we add these two together, we'll get the running total, and then our third one will add our final running total sales for this customer, and then we'll start again. So the first row for each customer is going to be the same sales value and running total sales because it's the first purchase, but now it's added on the second purchase here. It's 65,988. Okay, so we wouldn't have been able to create this calculation because sales value hasn't been calculated yet in this CTE. So it wouldn't have been a matter of adding a comma and bringing in this calculation, because it wouldn't work until we've actually created this calculation, and now we're querying from this table for CTE, and now we can create the calculation to get the running total. Okay, so in the next video we will continue with this query, but we'll need to bring in our payments and then calculate who's gone over their credit limit. So I'll see you in the next video. Hi, welcome back to home. So what I want to do now, I'm going to open up a new query, and let's just bring back all the columns from the payments table. Okay, and you can see we have a customer number, a payment date, and an amount. So what I want to do, we want to create a running total of payments also ordered by the payment date. So let's just bring back everything. We don't really need check number, but we'll bring it anyway. And what we want to do is, again, we'll sum our amount over, and we're going to partition this by the customer number and order it by the order date. And that's going to be running total payments. Okay, so something else. Okay, so you see the order date that I put it in here. So I'm going to do payment date. Yeah, so now it's partition, or sorry, ordered by payment date. So let's just go with customer. So customer 103, 3 payment dates, and a running total of our payment, similar to our sale. Okay, so now we can bring this query in as a CTE into our main query. So let's just do this after our running total sales. I'll just name it payments CTE as, and then we can paste in our query, close our brackets. We don't have to query from this, we can still just show what we did before. But now we have an extra table which we're going to want to join to our running total sales CTE. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do a left join. So we'll just name our running total sales CTE T1, and we'll left join our payment CTE T2. And if you remember, our payment CTE has a customer number. So we have T1 dot customer number plus T dot customer number. Okay, and then we'll look at customer 103 for our example. So let's just show customer 103 where T1 dot customer number equals 103. So we would only expect 3 rows here. We want to see our running total payments. Okay, so customer number is up here. Yep. Oh, yeah, this one. So we're bringing from our first table T1. But now we have multiple rows. And what's happened is we have 3 rows for each order date because we have 3 running total payments values. And I did this intentionally to show you that now we need to add a second order date. And we only want to join our payment CTE when the payment date is between the order date and the next order date. Okay, so what we're going to need to do, we're going to want to add a new column here to show the next order date. And to do that we use E. And we want to use E after this calculation has happened, the sum of the sales value in our running total sales. So rather than adding a new, let's just make this a subquery and select all of them. So after add, just do a select stop, and then this is now a subquery. I'll name it subquery. Close our bracket again. Just open our bracket for our CTE. Now we have a CTE, but we're selecting all from a subquery. Okay, so I do also like to bring a subquery like to highlight that it's separate. And now that the subquery calculation of sales value will have happened, we can add in another column easily. And we leave our order date over partition by customer number and order by our order date. And we're going to name that column next order date. Okay, so minimize our subquery here to like, so now you can still have all the columns, so I'm going to bring in a next order date column. Because now you're not running. is we can now add into our left join condition. We want our payment date to be between the order date and the next order date. So we want T3.payment date to be between T1.order date and T1.next order date. Okay, so now we only have the three. So you'll notice it hasn't actually brought in our last column though from our running total payments. Let's just run our running total payments for customer 103 in our query that we created before. Okay, so we do have three outputs, and we want to show this last running total payment value, but we can't because it hasn't joined due to the last next order date being null. So what we can actually do is we change this condition to show a case when this is null, then use the current date. So let's do that. Next order date is null, then use current underscore date else, use next order date. And now we will see our running total payments, our last field here, because we've been able to join even though this next order date is null. Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll just remove our where statement here, and let's order our output by the T1.customer number. Let's have a look. Okay, so we do have an issue here. It's not displaying the running total payments when the customer didn't make a payment. So the customer goes through a period of making multiple orders without a payment, and this is what we're looking for. But we will be able to sort that by creating this calculation after. So let's just remove it from our payment CTV. And instead we can calculate it in our main query here. We just partition by T1.customer number. So now you'll notice that we still have the issue. And that's because there's no payment date to order this by in our partition table. So instead of payment date, we can order it by the order date. And if we run this, now we have a running total payment. So let's order this output by customer number and order date. And we'll go back to the customer 124, we have the issue with. You can see now it's bringing the same running total payment because we're ordering it by our order date in our partition table. Now we can just subtract our running total sales. Sorry, we'll subtract our running total payments from our running total sales to get the money. So let's do that. So we'll need to do it after this calculation happens. So we'll create another CTV and we'll just name it main CTV. Can't order and put in a CTV, so we'll just remove this last name. And you'll notice we also have customer number 20. So let's just bring back T1.all. Then we don't need anything else from our payment table apart from our running total payments. Okay, and then we'll do a select start, and we also just want to do running total sales minus running total payments. We'll name that. That's money goes. Okay, so what we need to do now is subtract our money owed from our credit limit column. Let's just add a new column, credit limit minus, after writing calculation, after type money owed, and we'll just name that as different. Okay, so the credit limit is still it's the same, whenever difference is the same credit limit, we don't know when. So if you could find any time when the difference is negative, you have 33, so the money owed is 55, the credit limit is 41. Okay, so we can send this output in reply to the email, and I know it's a much more difficult query to write, but we've covered many topics here. We have multiple CTVs that we join together, and we use the subquery within a CTV. We use our lead function, and you also learned about some functions as well over partition by to calculate our running total. Okay, so I'll see you in the next section. Thanks. Hello everyone. So in this video, before we actually move on to the next section, I just want to show you how you can use ChatGPT to help you with writing SQL queries. So the first thing you definitely want to do is assign a role to ChatGPT. You have to think of it like giving your assistant a specific job to focus on. So if you tell ChatGPT to act like a data analyst, it's going to frame its responses in a way that's really helpful for writing SQL queries or analyzing data. So on the left side, you can see a good example where it actually says, you are a data analyst. I need help writing SQL queries to extract insights from a customer database. So with this kind of prompt, ChatGPT knows you're expecting SQL-related help, and it'll start thinking like a data analyst. Compared to the right side, where you're just saying write SQL queries, it's way too generic and there's no role or context. So ChatGPT might generate something off track, or even worse, it'll just generate something wrong. So giving it a clear role like a data analyst will help to keep things on point. Okay, so the next important thing to add is context. So context is key when you're working with ChatGPT on SQL. And the more details you give, the better the query it will generate. So you have to think of it like talking to someone who doesn't know your database. You've got to lay everything out clearly so they can write the correct SQL. So again, on the left-hand side, we have a prompt which first assigns a role, and then it will add some context. So you're a data analyst and working with a customer table that contains customer ID, first name, last name, email, date of birth, and purchase amount. So we're actually specifying the columns. And then I need an SQL query to get the total purchase amount for each customer born after 1990. So you can see how specific this is. And we're telling ChatGPT exactly what fields you have and what you want. So this will make it much easier for ChatGPT to understand and then write the correct query. Comparing this to the bad example on the right, where we just say, write an SQL query to get customer purchases, it's way too vague, and ChatGPT doesn't understand what customer purchases actually is in our data or what columns we need. And they don't know if we're talking about purchase amount or sales value. They don't know the actual name of the field. Okay, so next, it's important to actually add instructions for SQL query optimization. So ChatGPT can be really useful here, but only if you give it clear instructions. You can ask it to optimize a query and even explain the changes it's making. So a good example on the left side again here, you can see you're a data analyst, optimize the following query to improve its performance and add comments explaining each part. And then we can actually provide it with the query. And this might be a query that ChatGPT generated from a previous prompt. And then the response will actually make suggestions and explain its optimizations, and it could even add comments if you specified that instruction, as you can see in the output here. And then if you compare this to the bad example, it's again just too vague. What are we optimizing, and is it the performance or the readability? ChatGPT would need more context to actually do a good job. So it is really useful to include the original query whenever you ask for an instruction like this from ChatGPT. Okay, and the last tip to do to improve your prompts is to actually use something called few-shot prompting. And what this is, it actually means to provide a few examples to ChatGPT on how to perform similar tasks. So it helps establish a consistent format for SQL query generators. You might prefer using subqueries, or you might have a preference towards CTEs. Both actually do the same thing. And because there are multiple ways to write queries, you can ask ChatGPT by providing it a few examples to actually write the SQL in that same style. So you're essentially training it to write SQL queries in the same style structure that you're actually used to, so that you can review the output. And in a bad example where we're actually just saying to write an SQL query to find customers with more than 5 orders, no examples are provided, and ChatGPT might not follow a desired format or structure. Okay, so there are some great benefits of using ChatGPT for SQL. They really save time. I've used it a lot at work, and you just have to be careful what you actually input into ChatGPT, and not to actually, particularly if you're working for a big company with private and personal data, it would depend on the data privacy, but ChatGPT can really help you write SQL queries much faster. And instead of actually spending time on syntax, you can focus more on the analysis. And then the accuracy. So if you do get a good instruction, it can really help you provide accurate queries. And it can even work as a learning aid. So if it's producing an SQL query that with a different topic that maybe you don't understand, you can actually ask it to explain the queries as well and add comments as we show in the instructions part. And then efficiency, you can ask it to optimize the queries to try and make them run quicker. Okay, but one thing I would like to stress is not to over-rely on ChatGPT. So it is powerful for generating SQL queries, but I wouldn't blindly trust the outputs without thoroughly testing them. And ChatGPT doesn't actually have direct access to your database or the data types. So the queries it generates might not always work as expected, as we will show in a few examples in future videos. Okay, and then best practices, instead of actually blindly trusting it, just double check the output and test the generated queries just to ensure. And this is why it's so important to actually have an understanding of SQL rather than just relying on ChatGPT to write it for you. Okay, so just a reminder before we finish this video of some best practices when using ChatGPT for SQL. So to be specific, provide detailed information about the schema and the query requirements. And then use clear instructions, such as optimizing the query or adding comments. Test the output, so always test the SQL queries and ensure the output is correct. And leverage few-shot prompts, so always provide examples, and it will really help ChatGPT to understand the requirements. Okay, so in the next video, we'll have a look at some examples.
This mountain range is actually a UNESCO biosphere reserve. These towers have been scaled.
Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to use ChatGPT just to try and answer a couple of the questions that we've covered in the previous section. Okay, so if you don't already have a ChatGPT account, you can set one up. You just need to type into Google ChatGPT or visit chatgpt.com. It's an OpenAI large language model, and it's really useful for helping data analysts write SQL queries. Okay, so if you remember the first question that was asked of us in the analysis piece, we received an email that says, can you please give me an overview of sales for 2004? I would like to see a breakdown by product, country, and city, and please include the sales value, cost of sales, and net profit. So let's see how ChatGPT handles this. Okay, so I'm going to paste in a prompt here that first assigns it a role. You're a data analyst. I need help to extract insights from a customer database. And then we're going to assign some instructions. So I need an overview of sales for 2004, broken down by product, country, and city. Ensure you also show sales value, cost of sales, and net profit in your output. And then we're going to ask it just to add comments to the code to explain the query. So the last thing we'll need to add is some context, and this is going to be the tables and columns, because ChatGPT won't know the names of the tables or columns that we actually need to use. Okay, and how we can actually do that is, in this schema on the left-hand side, we have our tables, and whenever we click into these tables, so we want to give some human input here by actually providing the tables, only the tables that we need to use to answer this question. So we know that orders and order details tables we'll need to use, and you can actually just copy under information the table name, and it gives us the columns and the column names and also the data types. And we can just copy this and paste it straight into ChatGPT. So you hit Shift and Enter to actually go down. If you hit Enter there, it's going to actually provide ChatGPT with that prompt, and we don't want to do that yet because it's not going to be able to answer the question. But we can paste it in this table, but we'll also need to paste in the order details table and the customers table. So I'll just open this up, click into order details, and do the same thing, and then just paste it in below. So we have our table and our columns, and then the last one we'll need to provide is actually the customers table, and that will help us know which city and country that the customer is from, which is what one of the requirements was. Okay, then if I paste that in, we've got quite a long prompt now, mostly made up of the table names and column names that we're actually going to be using, but we are providing it with PK as the primary key, and hopefully ChatGPT can understand that this is what these tables can maybe join on. So let's provide it with this and see how it does. Okay, so it's straight away adding a lot of comments, as you can see. We'll just give it a second. Okay, so it's finished the output here, and immediately I've noticed an error, but I wanted to keep it in and show you what ChatGPT would do if we didn't provide all the context. So if you can guess what the error is, you're very quick onto it, but straight away, it's assuming the cost is 70%, if you can see here, of the sales value. And we know that that's not true. But the reason it's provided this assumption, and it's multiplied the quantity ordered by the price by 0.7 to guess the cost of sales, pretty much, but we haven't actually provided it with the table that gives us the cost of each product. So that's what we need to do now, by just clicking into the product, and then we have this buy price. So I'm just going to copy and paste this in. But I'm not going to write a new query. We can edit our original query by just clicking this edit message. And I'm just going to provide the final table just to look at the difference in the output. So I've pasted in our products table. Oh, I've pasted in customers again. I'll just delete that, and I must not have copied this correctly. Just right click and copy and paste. Yeah, that's our products table. And then I'll just click send. And it's going to actually replace the original output. Okay, so hopefully now it will, as you can see, multiplies by the buy price. And then that's what it's assigning as the cost of sales. Okay, so the output has been completed, and the code is now in the black box, as you can see. And what we can do is just click on this copy code. And it does give an explanation in the output as well here of what it's actually using to calculate the key fields. Okay, so let's just paste this now into our MySQL workbench, and let's hope that it runs and returns the correct output. But I can see straight away that it looks correct. It's it's joined the correct tables, it's applied the correct filter of the year being 2004, and then it's grouping and ordering our output. So I'm just going to click on execute here, and we have our each product, country, city, the sales value, the cost of sales, and the net profit. Well, it's done a really good job here at providing us the correct output, and you are welcome to check this output against the answers that we provided in the first question whenever we manually completed this, but I have already checked this and I know it's correct. You might just want to add a pivot table which sums the sales value per country or per product, and then we can compare it with our first two questions. Okay, so in the next video we will continue on with a couple more examples, but I also do want to show you why we can't rely solely on ChatGPT to provide us with the correct response.
Oh, we're leaving? Okay, let me just do my hair real quick.
Okay, so in this video we're going to try and answer two more of the questions that we covered in the previous section. So one I think would be a more intermediate question, and the other one would be more advanced, and I want to see how ChatGPT can try to approach these problems. So the first one is where we wanted to show customers sales and include a column which shows the difference in value from their previous sale. Okay, so I'm back into the same ChatGPT prompts that I had in the last video, so it will actually remember these prompts that we have provided in the past, but we just want to continue on with this. And I'm going to paste in, I already have the prompts that I want to use, and I've already included the tables here as well. So we're asking, again, assigning a role, and then we want to say I need a MySQL query, and I am specifying MySQL because there are multiple different languages. There's PostgreSQL and T-SQL, and they would be slightly different, so we do want to ensure that we write that it's a MySQL query to show customer sales by customer, and include a column which shows the value of their previous sale and the difference in this sale compared to their previous sale. Okay, and then again, I just have the tables that we use, which is the orders, the customers, and the order details. Okay, so I'll just provide it with this, and let's see how it does. Again, it's adding comments here because it does. I didn't actually specify this in this particular prompt, but it does remember from the previous prompt. Okay, it looks like it's now obviously a much more difficult query here. It's using lag over partition by, which we did cover, and then it's explaining what this is actually doing. Okay, so I'm just going to go up and copy this code and open up my SQL Workbench, and in a new query, I'll just paste this in. Okay, so we have our, let's minimize this, we have our commented out section here, which actually shows what it's doing, and the more difficult part here would be the lag function. So it's actually using sum of the order, quantity ordered multiplied by the price inside a lag, and then over partition by customer number, and then order by order date, which is the correct way to do this. And then it's calculating the difference. It's not using a CTE or a subquery or anything. So there are multiple ways to approach this, but first it's summing to get the current sales value per order date, and then it's subtracting the previous sales value, all in the same single query, no CTE and no subquery. So if we actually execute this, it's a good sign if it actually returned an output okay, and it's ordered by customer number and order date. So we have our customers here, our order dates, and then the current sales value. So obviously because it's the first order, there is no previous sale or sales difference. And then look at the next order for this customer. It's much less, and it has actually successfully calculated that correctly. You can see here, it's got the previous sales value and then the difference. So I would be happy with this output. And we know many gifts distributors have many orders, so we can see here all the orders and the difference in their previous order. Okay, so I would call that a success from ChatGPT. But we'll try a more difficult one now. Okay, so if you remember our more advanced question, which was actually to show a breakdown of each customer and their sales, but include a money owed column to show if any customers have actually gone over their credit limit. So let's try this in ChatGPT. Okay, so I pasted in a very similar prompt to before, where we need a MySQL query to show customer sales by customer, but I also need a money owed column to see if any customers go over their credit limit. These are the tables used. So we have our orders, we have our customers, quite hard to read, and then we also have our order details and our payments actually. So our final table here, as you can see, is our payments, and we do need to provide it with this so that ChatGPT can work out the dates the customers made payments, if you remember from the query. Okay, so let's just provide it with this. Okay, now ChatGPT has come back with quite a longer output than before, but I can see that it's not going to be correct, and I want to just go over why. So I'm going to copy this, and it is a difficult one, so I didn't expect ChatGPT to be able to do it on its first attempt, but if I paste this query into MySQL Workbench and actually run it, it will run the query, it will run an output, but it's just telling everything that it is within the credit limit. But what it's not actually done is take into account the payments that have been made. It's just summed. It's summed the amount as total payments, and it's summed the total sales value, but it's not taken into account the date. And this is what we actually needed it to do, to find out if anyone at a given date and time was over their credit limit. Okay, and I have tried to provide ChatGPT with some extra context just to try and take into account date, but it actually gets quite messy and it does get very difficult. So I do believe a question like this will come down to us being able, as humans, having to actually write the query itself. And this is why it is still important, in my opinion, to still have an understanding of SQL. You cannot rely on ChatGPT to provide us with the correct output. And someone who doesn't know SQL might rely on this and hope that it's actually correct, but in actual fact, it's not. In this video, I just want to show another common use case for how ChatGPT can help you with your SQL queries, and that's to write our case statements for us. So I'm just going to open our orders table just by right-clicking and selecting the rows. And what I would like to do is actually group these comments into another category, and we want ChatGPT to actually come up with a category as well. We could provide it with a list of categories, but first we'll just show the distinct comments in this orders table. So we'll just write distinct comments, and then we're going to have all our unique comments here. And we could have a read through all of these ourselves if we like, and then group them into things like shipping or payments, but I want to see if ChatGPT can do that for us. So what we'll do is just Control and A and copy this. And I'll just paste them into a notepad for now. These are all our unique comments. And what I have is just a prompt, which I will paste into ChatGPT here. And again, it just assigns a role. You're a data analyst. I need help to extract insights from a customer database. Can you group these comments from customers into a new column named comment type using a MySQL case statement? So we actually tell it that we needed to use a case statement. And then we can add all of these comments into the prompt as well, just at the end. Okay, so again, it's going to be quite a long prompt because we're providing so many examples. And then let's just see what it comes up with. Okay, so it has finished here, and it has grouped them into, it's told us what categories it's going to group it into: shipping request, negotiation request, dispute or complaint, order management, and then just a general inquiry, which would be a grouping for miscellaneous, really. So we can see there is an issue, I can see straight away, and the reason is because they have a comma with doesn't here, and that's actually closed the initial like statement. So if we actually copy this in and bring it into my SQL Workbench and paste it, yeah, we're going to have this error, and then if we did try and run that, it's not going to work. You can see here, it's the SQL syntax. So I'm actually going to copy and paste this part of the query back into ChatGPT and just ask it to explain what's happening, and I can tell straight away that it's because of this comma. So we'll tell ChatGPT that, and then we'll ask it to fix it. Okay, so just below, I am pasting in the query, but I'm also just going to add my own prompt below, which just specifies that there is an error in this part of the SQL statement due to the quote closing the in statement. Can you fix this? And I just want to remind that it is a MySQL query. I'm going to ask it to rename the comment to comments and the table name to orders, because it has just guessed the table name and the field name, and it's my own fault for not specifying this in the original prompt. Okay, so I'll just update that, extend it, and let's just see what it comes back with. So it does specify why the error happened and how to fix it. Okay, so the reason we can fix it is by just adding in an extra code, as you can see here, and that would have fixed it. And we could have done this ourselves, but I just wanted to get ChatGPT to do everything for us. Okay, so let's just copy this code, and let's see if it works. Okay, so it looks like it's done a pretty good job. It's got the shipping here as a shipping request, but quite a few are going into other, and specifically these null ones, so these are actually no comment. So what I would actually prefer to do is add a final, I'll do this manually, just when comment is null, then no comments. And that would probably be better than having them all fall into the other category. Okay, so we execute this and it's all going to just show us no comments. Okay, now there are still a few others, but then we have our general inquiry, our shipping requests, our dispute. Yeah, because it contains the word dispute, then it's showing up as a complaint, order management. Okay, so this is a really quick way on how you can actually group all these together, and ChatGPT's done a pretty good job. But we could add a few more possible outputs here if we wanted. The likes of this reevaluate their terms agreement with finance. We could change this to negotiation instead of other, because there is a couple here, as you can see. And we would just ask ChatGPT to add in an extra comment type, where it actually contains reevaluate, then show it up as negotiation in our comment type. And then we could just do further analysis on this if we wanted. So there is already a negotiation request actually, so we could ask ChatGPT to just group these into negotiation, or we could do it ourselves. Sometimes you will just add some manual extras into the case statement, but it would save you so much time writing all of this out, so I would use it quite commonly as well. Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to create a view. I'm going to use that view to connect to Power BI to start working on our dashboard. So if you look on the left hand side, you'll see there's the option for tables, which we've been using throughout this course. But we also have the option to see views. So a view is like a pre-saved query that you can run anytime. So if we open up a new script, we can create a view. But first we'll write our query. So the query I want to use for our dashboard will have the sales, value and the cost of sales, at a product and customer level to show the office, the country, just everything we can visualize in Power BI. So to do that, we'll just need to join all the tables together. So I'm going to save this query and load it onto the resources section of the lecture, in case you prefer to just run it yourself. But what I'll do is I'll bring everything back from the order table, and so I'll name this ORD, and what I'll do is I'll join order details, order details, and we'll join that on, I've done this so many times now that we remember, order number equals order number, and then we'll also bring in the customer table. And we remember the orders table has the customer number. Oh, I think right when I join. Customer number equals CU dot customer number. And then we'll also bring in the products table. And we'll join that on order details. Product code equals product code. And then let's bring in the employees of the office so that we can show this. So if you remember, we can't bring in the office without bringing in employees. So we join that on our sales rep employee number. Finally, we'll bring in our offices. That's the office code equals code.office. Okay, so let's open save. Yep, so there. So now we have all our rows all joined. So we have a few ordered by order number, and we have multiple rows here due to the product breakdown. But what we'll do, we'll just select which column we want. So bring in the order date. So we'll use the order number so that we can count it if we want in Power BI. Let's get the product name, customer name. Yeah, we want the customer country and the office country, so we'll do what we did before and name that as customer country. Oh, that country, so it's not C, it's CU. We'll name that office country. And we'll bring the buy price. SQL by just adding in a comma. And what we want to do is we want to, because it's broken down at a product level, we can just do the quantity order multiplied by the price, and that comes to be sales value. And then we'll also do quantity order multiplied by the buy price, and that will be cost of sales. Okay, so if we run this, now we have each product line as well, and then if we go to the right hand side, we have the sales value and the cost of sales. Right, again, because it's broken down by product, this won't be the value of the order, unless we actually remove the product breakdown. Then we can only have one row for order number and then some for sales and a cost of sales. So we can do this in Power BI. So what I'll do with this output is I will create a view. So for our query, we can just add a little statement that says create. You can actually create it for replace view, which I commonly use. So if the view name already exists, we will replace it with this query. So let's call it sales data for Power BI. And then we can write as, what this will do is it will save this query every time the view is run. So let's just run this. We won't get an output. We'll say execute. And we want to see an output with a green tick, which says no rows affected, which means the view's been created okay. If there was an error in the query, it would show up in X and tell us what the error is. So now our view will be created. So if we just refresh our classic model schema, you can see now we have a view called sales data for Power BI. And you can see each column name. And what we can do is we can right click this, select rows, and now we can see our output. Okay, so now we have this view that we can connect directly to Power BI with. So in the next video we will work with Power BI and connect to this view and get started on our dashboard. So I'll see you then. Hi everyone, so now we're going to start our Power BI dashboard. So I've just opened up a new Power BI report, and what we're going to do is we're going to connect to the view that we just created. So to do that, just on the top, we'll click Get Data, and then More. So we need to connect to MySQL. So if we go to, we can scroll down, or else we can just go to Database and find it here. So just need to go up, and then you'll see there's a MySQL Database option, so we'll just double click on this. And then again, we'll just need to connect to the server. So what you can do, you can open up MySQL Workbench, and on the top left, we'll go to Home. And then I'll just right click this Classic Models Connection, and we'll select Copy Connection String to Clipboard. And then back in our Power BI, we can just paste this. Again, I just want to remove root tabs, just so that we have the numbers, and then the database that we'll connect to will be classic models. It'll be our schema. Okay, and then we just click OK. From here, it may ask you for your login credentials that we use whenever we set it up. But what we'll connect to is our view, which is sales data for Power BI. So we can just click this and load. Okay, it may just take a minute, but on the right hand side, you'll see we'll have our view and all the fields that we need to use. Okay, but before we get started, I would like to just format our canvas. So if you remember, we can change the background color. So the format your report key option onto the visualization pane on the right hand side. So we click into this. So first we'll go to key information. We can name this as sales overview. And then you'll notice it's changed the name on the bottom as well on the tab. Then under canvas setting, we can change the size to be custom. So let's make it a bit bigger. I'm going to go 900 by 1500 white. And then for canvas background, you can keep this a light theme if you like, but I'm going to go with a dark theme. So I saved the hash code in a notepad here. So let's just copy this in. So under color, more color. So you can pick any color you like, but I'll just paste in the dark theme hash code. And if you remember, we just need to change the transparency to 0% for it to take effect. Okay, so that's our background color. And what I want to do, I want to add rectangle shapes on the left and right hand side of this. So to do that, we click Insert, Shape, Rectangle. We can just move it over to the left and drag it down. So I'm going to set the width to 170. So to do that, you can just click into the shape. And under General, Property, we can just set the width. So let's do 170. And then under Shape, we can just change the color under Style. Our color here, color fill. So I will set it to the hash I have saved here, just so it's a little bit lighter than our canvas background. So I'll just paste this hash in. And then if we click away, you can see that the border has stayed blue. this dashboard will have 2 pages, and the second page is only going to have a rectangle on the left-hand side, not the right-hand side. So I'm going to just duplicate this page now before we add our second rectangle. And then if we click back into our sales overview page, we can copy and paste this rectangle. So Control and C and Control V will just make a copy, and then bring it over to the right-hand side. And then I want to make this wider because we're going to be adding charts inside it also. So if you click into the shape, you'll notice if we go to General like before and Properties, so say we want to make it 320, it's not going to work. So it's because it's aligned to the right-hand side. So if we just bring it inside more, then we can set it to 320, and then drag it to the right-hand side, and then click away, and you'll see it's a bit bigger now. Okay, and the final thing we'll do in this video is just add 3 rectangles into this one, which we'll be putting our charts inside. But we'll make them, we'll match the color of the canvas background. So again, we'll just insert a shape rectangle. So let's just set the width and height on the general to be, we'll go 180 high by 280 wide, and then we'll match the color of the background. So again, we'll just copy the canvas background color, Control C, click into our shape, and on the style, get that color, and we'll have our border again. Yep, so let's just remove that. Okay, and then we'll move this inside, Control C, and then Control V twice, just to get 2 more in. And then just drag them below. We can line them up with the red lines so that they're matching. So finally what we can do then is just hold Control, click on all 3 rectangles, and at the top we can click on Format, Align, and Distribute Vertically. They will all be distributed. Okay, so that is it for now, and in the next video we'll start working on our visualization of our charts. So I'll see you there. Hi, and welcome back everyone. So now what we're going to do is populate these 3 rectangles on the right hand side with charts and cards. So we'll work on our top one first, which will show the total sales in a card, and we'll also show a line chart. And we'll split the line chart into 2 to show a breakdown of rest of world sales and USA sales. So to do that we'll need to create a grouping with our office company. But first just let's create a card showing the total sales and the value. So to do that, under visualization, we'll just take this middle card button and we'll add a card. So I'm just going to resize this to make it a little bit smaller. And while we click onto it, we can just take our sales value here. So you'll notice that it's not in dollar format. So we can change this in our data view. So we have our sales value here, as you can see. And on the top, similar to Excel, we can just click dollar. So you can see it's not changed to dollar. So while we're here, we can also do the same with monthly. So we'll just click into the scale and click dollar at the top here. So now back in our report views, it's showing now its dollar value. So we'll just remove this heading below, this category table, which shows someone sales value by just unpicking the font to and turning it to off. And then if we go into general, we can now add a title. And we'll just name this title total sales. Okay, and then we can center this and make it slightly bigger. So horizontal line, we can just bring it into the middle. And first I'll just change the text color. I'm going to make it the white 10% darker. Okay, and I won't just do that for the title. I'll do it for the text as well. So our call out value, make it the same color here. And then we want to change the background to match our rectangle. So to do that, there's the general and the text. So I still have our rectangle title, but I want it to be this color. So Control C. And then just under more colors, we can just paste it in our text code. Okay, now we can drag this over inside our rectangle and we'll make it a bit smaller. So we can fit the chart below. So we don't need to make our text smaller so that it fits. Okay, so we'll go back to our visual and our call out value. And let's just bring this size much smaller. So 18. Yeah, that should be fine. And see what size our title is. Yeah, 14 should be okay. Make it a bit smaller. Okay, so what we can do now is just make a copy of this. Control C, Control V, and then we can bring it down to our second rectangle. And instead of showing the sum of sales value, we'll just remove that from sales. And we will find our order number. So pick order number. We're going to sum it. Well, there's a little arrow drop down inside the field, and we can just change it to be a count. Or we can actually count this thing. That will be the distinct amount of orders, because if we just left this count, it's going to include, because the data is broken down by product. If we look again at our data, you can see we have the order number multiple times due to the many products in each order. So let's count the distinct orders. And for this, we'll just need to change the title in our format to visual field. General, so I'm just going to change the title to count of unique orders. Okay, so I'll just see in my dashboard here, top left. And let's make it like up. So, Control C, bring it down to our final rectangle. Okay, and what I would like to display in this card is the average value of each order. So we can divide the total sales by the unique count of unique orders. But to do that, we're going to need to create a new field. So we can do that in Power BI. Under calculations at the top here, we can click new measure. You can see a pane opens up at the top here. So we can rename it here. Rather than measure, we'll call it average sales value per order. Our calculation is going to be the sum of our sales value. You can see it comes up here. We just click it. And we'll close our bracket and we divide it by the want to change our legend and our y-axis to be this white color with 10% darker as well. So, and our grid lines also white. Or we could leave our grid lines like this. So under visual, then we'll click into legend. Just for text, we'll just change the color to be this white 10% darker one. And then the same for y-axis. So the values change to be the same. So now we can just minimize this chart, and then we can drag it up. That's all we want to make it do. And just match the rectangle behind. Click into it. Yeah, and then the red line will appear. Okay, now that's our first chart done. And then what we can do is just again Control and C it. And Control and D just to bring our other chart just below. And instead of displaying our sales here, we'll display our count of TV quarters. So let's remove sales. And then we can drag in order number. We'll get not a summary, but we'll do a count of thing. And the trend will be the same. We can see on the left hand side any days that may have had many orders. And then our last one will be the average sale, average value of each order. So we'll just paste this again, bring it down. And then we'll just finally remove our order number from the y-axis. And then we'll still have our calculated field, which shows the average sales value. So we can just drag it into the y-axis. And this is again, it's always going to be broken down at a month level. So this is just showing the average value of each order per month. Okay, so that's our 3 charts created. So in the next video, we'll start working on our main dashboard in the middle here. So I'll see you in the next video. Hi, and welcome back everyone. Now what we want to do now is to create 4 charts for our middle of our dashboard here. And I also want to have 2 buttons at the top, which allows us to view either the sales or the net profit for each chart. So what I'll do first is create a net profit calculated field so that we have the option. And to do that, again, we'll just create a new measure at the top. And for net profit, we know our calculation is just the sum of the sales value minus the sum of the cost of sales. So let's just first name our measure net profit. And then we'll start writing our calculation. So it's going to be the sum of the sales value. Just remember to close our bracket minus the sum of the cost of sales. And then we close our bracket. Okay, and then once we check that, net profit is going to show up here on the right hand side. Now we want to just test this out to make sure it looks okay. So what we can do, I would like to just copy one of our charts that we created in the previous video. And then we can bring it into the middle just to keep the one line. And then we can make it a bit bigger. And let's just change the sum of sales value to be sum of net profit. Okay, now the trend again is exactly the same with the value just smaller, which is what we expect because it is net profit. Now what we want to do is just change, like before, our net profit to be a currency. And then whenever we go back, it will show them as dollars on the y-axis. Okay, so we'll just leave this chart as it is now. It's not what we're going to be showing, but I want to insert 2 bills, which is going to show one for sales and one for net profit. And we'll need to set them up so that once they're clicked, the charts that we have here will show either the sales or the net profit, depending on what we click. Okay, so to do that, at the top we can again insert, but this time we'll insert a button. And we'll just insert a blank button. For me it's just showing up on the left hand side here, it's quite actually hard to see. But we click into it here. Let's just change the color first so we can see. So under our style, on the button, we turn fill to on. Yeah, we'll leave it like this for now. You can see it's a rectangle shape. You can keep as if you prefer, but I'm going to change mine to be a fill so that it's more round. And then we can insert some text here. So under style text, we can turn it on. And let's just write sales. We'll make it our white 10% darker color. And then first I'll just make this fill bigger. Like this. And then we'll want to change our fill color as well. I'm going to want it to match our leaf color, which I know is 19666. But if you want to click into the chart, you can always check it under the format visual and then lines and colors. So I'll go with the darker USA one, but I can give it just Control C this. And then paste it into our fill color. Well, it's actually showing up here in these colors, so you don't even have to check it. We'll need to make our transparency zero though. If you want to leave the border, you can, but I'm going to remove it. I just want the border. Okay, and then let's just make a copy of this, Control and C, Control and V, and just bring it another one beside it. And in the text of the second one, we can just change it to show net profit. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to enter new data to set each of these metrics up, and we're going to want to give them a number ID. So, for example, 1 will be sales and 2 will be net profit. So what we can do to enter our own data is under the home page, we can just click on enter data. And now we can just create our own table based on what we enter. So all we're going to want to do, we'll name the first column to be number ID. And we'll just name the first row 1. And then we'll add a second row, and that'll be number 2. And we'll add a second column, and we'll just call it control. So number 1 is going to be sales, and number 2 will be net profit. And then if we load this in, just take a wee second, it's going to show up below our data source, our copy 1 data source. And then you're going to see the 2 fields that we just created, one named control and one named number ID. Now what we're going to want to do is add a measure to our table that we just created, which will show the values depending on what is selected. So if number 1 is selected, we want it to show sales, and if number 2 is selected, we want it to show net profit. To do that, we'll just enter a new measure, so we go home, new measure, and then at the top, we'll call this measure selected metric. And for our calculation, we'll use a switch operator, so it's going to be switch, and then we can open our brackets. We're just going to shift and enter to go to a new line, and then we can use selected values. And then it's going to tell us the column name, and then the alternate result. So the column name will be number ID. Whenever we select 1, we need to show the sum of the sales value, close bracket, minus the sum of the cost of sales for our net profit. And then we just need to close brackets again so that it maps to the first bracket. And then shift and enter again, and for our final, it's just going to display what is the default value. So for our default value, we'll just show the sum of the sales value. And then close our brackets. And then we'll just need to finally add in our last closing parentheses. And then we'll just come into this, and then we'll add our selected metric measure just below our number ID in our table that we just created. Okay, so in the next video, we will create a chart which shows product line, and then we will set up these buttons to display the metric for our first chart depending on what we select. So I'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone, welcome back. So now we're going to set up this chart for all our charts to work with the buttons depending on which metric we want to display. So first we'll just show this chart. We want to show it as our product line, and we'll display a cluster bar chart. We'll want to remove our office group from legend. We'll also want to remove net profit, and we're going to bring in selected metric instead. And then rather than order date, we're going to display our product line. So we click on this, it's going to have product line. And I will need to show our x-axis, so let's just format the visual. Or sorry, our y-axis. Let's just format the visual and display that first. And we'll use the colors for the y. Okay, so now you want to ensure you just click away from the chart, and we'll add a slicer. So it's on our fourth fifth row slicer. You just click on this. This will act as a filter. Just going to make it smaller. And in our slicer, we're going to want to display number ID that we created in our previous video. And let's just change this to be a single value list under our format visual settings, slicer settings, and then for style we will show it as a vertical list. So now if we select 1, we'll be displaying the sales value, and 2 will be displaying the net profit. So now we're ready to add bookmarks. So again, we just click back to number 1, and at the top we just need to select view, and we can view our bookmarks on the right hand side once we click this, and we'll also show the selection pane so it shows what we're selecting. And while clicking on slicer, make sure it's highlighted, we click add bookmark. So you'll notice that the selection pane has everything that's on our dashboard, and while we hover over it, it's going to highlight what it is, so it even includes our shapes that we added. So, and for our bookmark, if we want to just click this, we can rename it. I'm going to name it select 1. So that's what we're using it for. And we can just untick display, and we'll untick current view. And we don't want to tick all visuals, we'll tick select visuals. Okay? Okay, so now what we need to do is just repeat this process for number 2. So we'll just click into number 2, insert slicer, highlight it in our selection, and add another bookmark. And we'll rename this select 2. And then again untick display, current view, and we'll tick select visual. Now we can also hide this slicer, so just beside the slicer, you can see the hide the visual button. So we just click that, we don't want to see this. And then we want to set up these bookmarks to be as actions for our buttons. So we click into sales, action, just turn it on.
Bueno, paramos hasta acá. Continuamos después. ¿Cuánto va? Claro, artículo.